Yo, dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting. Check out these sweet Forgel models. I think they're called the Legion tanks or Legion Glaives. This is the first video on the Next Level Painting channel. I'm super excited to have you guys stop by and check it out. The first step here is we're going to be laying down these greens. It's super dark. It's not much different than priming. You don't overthink it. Pull out your airbrush, just jab it out. Get your music going and just get those nice greens down, just find a good air paint if you have one. I'm using an air paint here. Just, really smooth, lay it down over a nice gray primer. It'll come out super fresh. Okay, this is where it gets a lot more technical. Now we're coming in with a black and we're burning out some of the transition zones, like where the metal connectors are, where some of those pipes are, on the bottom of the turret where it's going to sit on top of the tank. This video is basically just getting these turrets done, 100% completion. So as you can see, it's darkening it up, it's making it look more antiqued, more used. You got to find the little spots, think about where, metal connection tube is laying over something with paint on it for a prolonged period of time in a battle scenario. Like, how is it going to look? Like, how is it going to affect the surrounding area? So it's important to do these steps before you paint the things, that are causing the shadows or the antiquing. Like these little metal pipes and little metal connectors. Like, we're going to paint those, just we got to do all this airbrushing first to get, the transition to look clean, so we can come back and actually detail everything with a paintbrush. Now we're coming back in and we're going to use a green that's a little bit brighter than the green we started with. I mean, don't mess it up. Like, it's a Dark Angels green, so it has to be dark. So I take that same Dark Angels green, maybe add like a tiny bit of yellow in it, like the smallest amount. Just brighten it up, help it pop. So now I'm going to start in on the details, the metal details on the Volkite carronade. So I'm just going to sit here, just get a good brush, get your favorite big brush, get your little water. I like to use Vallejo Air Metals for this. This is crazy, but even though I'm paintbrushing, I just love them. They're so, something about they stick really well, and they're like already pre-watered. I don't know, they're just good. So I'm using like their darker metal right now. Just going through, just crush it, just hit it all, slop it on. Like, sometimes I'll hold a brush that does a little bit more detail in my left hand while I'm holding the model, and I got with this big brush, I'm just blasting all the spots, and then I quickly grab the light brush and I get all the details real quick, put it back, and just keep going. There's a lot of techniques for speed on this, because we are just blocking them in. You're not looking to transition highlights just yet. You just take the dark color, paint it all solid, the dark color, paint by numbers, actually. Like, you are staying inside the lines, like they told you in grade school. You're not getting the metal on the paint, on the green paint. You are being perfect, being precise, but be as fast. This is where the airbrush just helps you save a few hours. You want to utilize those hours appropriately, so don't just be like, hey, the airbrush saved me 3 hours on laying down colors. That means I saved 3 hours. It's like, no, if you were committed to an 8-hour paint job, use all 8 hours. Just now you get to use them more appropriately. You get to use them on this detail stage. You get to use 3 more hours on this detail stage. And that's what I like to do. So be precise, be clean, but be fast. Try to come in there and be a pro, I guess. Jumping in on this Accelerator Cannon, doing the same thing, hitting the metals. The same thing we just talked about, coming clean, coming hot. This one's kind of interesting though, because it's got the really long barrels. So I'm going to do something kind of interesting in a second. We're going to pull that airbrush back out and we're going to hit all the metal on that turret, on the long gun barrels, because, ain't no reason to paintbrush it all if it's so long. Dry brush technique. Here we go. Take your big flat brush, get your bright color, get a paper towel. Dry it off on the paper towel as hard as you can. Get it to the point where almost nothing comes off. It's just a dry pigment now. You take it to your dark metal and you dry brush it across the grains rapidly, and it should clip all the raised surfaces, creating an antique look and giving you a sense of realism, leaving the darkness and the recesses. Easy technique. Now we're coming back in, and there were some metal trim areas that were too close to the green, the fresh greens we just laid down. So I didn't dry brush those because it would just ruin the green. So I came back in now and I cleaned those up with the metal by hand, and I'll, integrating some cool little transitions by hand on the little surfaces there. But, don't try to dry brush something that close to the airbrush paint that you just laid down. More and more of my clients are asking for this technique, so I'm using it a lot right now. It's the Typhus Corrosion from the GW Technical line. I love this color. It's got so much grit in it. It gives you like a really textured like base rust. Like, I love it. So I come on, I've developed a lot of techniques to use it. Like, you know, I use brushes that are frayed out with little bristles going every direction so I can dipple it out, you know. And then I use a sponge, like, which is actually just like, I can pull foam and I can shape them the way I want with X-Acto knife, and I can speckle it even further, but then I'd like to build it up really thick and heavy in some of the recesses. So when it dries, it has that total, like, just builds up a corrosion and texture. I do it all over the metals specifically. Try to think about where it would be, then take it to like one notch above that is what I like to do, you know, to make it super extreme. I do have a few other techniques for controlling it. I have a couple brushes that are not frayed out, that are detail brushes, but like essentially you ruin brushes with this paint. Not really quickly, but I've categorized my brushes, the brushes I use for this and the brushes I don't use for this. So I do try to keep like a couple brushes, a couple different stages of usage. But the little brushes allow me to get in there and do like a little effect of it, like draining down. Sponge lets me go crazy, and even the frayed brush lets me go crazy. So I got these pipes in here. I decided to paint them red. It's kind of one of the Dark Angel colors from the pre-heresy, the black, the green, the red. So I thought it would look popping on this model. And I guess something I don't really show in the video is that after that dries, I'm going to use a crimson wash from GW. It's like a dark reddish, but I had a little bit more brown to it than it's supposed to have. So here, in this technique, I'm going to be highlighting the green. I'm going to just come in with like a necrotite green, a super poppy green. Find those little edges and hit them with the edges. I don't like to draw, I say this all the time, but I don't like to draw the edges of every little line in a Space Marine vehicle. I just hate it. I won't do it. But I will find like the little 90-degree angles in some of those lines and like try to blend outward from it and then brighter and brighter toward the center. So like I'm starting here with a little of that green mixed in with the dark green, drawing my lines out. Then I go into it with the brighter green and pop it, and then even go a little bit tighter with maybe a tiny bit of yellow. So I find a couple of lines that I like, trace them out the way I just described. It gives you that subtle look without kind of going overboard with the technique, because I am an airbrush artist, so I am nurturing a different technique for the most part. But I like to incorporate this pop technique, this popping the lines out. It's just that it's not where I like to spend my time. I like to spend my time on these advanced weathering techniques, really getting the smooth transition with the airbrush, and then I go in there and I just have a modified edge highlighting technique where I save a lot of time, but I still feel like the time is well spent in other places. Like, it's kind of like when I said, you know, if you pick up 3 hours, do something additionally. This is my thing I do additionally. Now that corrosion is totally dry, we're gonna dry brush that. Like, this is one of my favorite techniques. The same process, get your metals out, the same bright metal, dry brush over all the corrosion we just laid down, that Typhus corrosion, and it's textured. It's gonna catch it all and look fresh. Like, it's gonna look totally realistic. I love it. Just recommend it to anyone. Here's another advanced technique right here, using the Rza Rust from GW. It's kind of like a weathering powder, but you have control because it's liquid. I love coming on strong with it. Come on strong, and then I dabble it down with a sponge. Come on strong, bring it down with my, like, I designed the tip of the sponge with my X-Acto knife to be perfect for this. But then sometimes I come in just so tight with a little brush and just find the little spots and just you know, little pointilize, let it drain down. Sometimes I just dry brush it over a ridge. It's a very versatile pigment. It is super good. They sell it in the same technical line, even though they call it a dry. But it is super technical. It is awesome. You can find a million ways to use this thing effectively. It is the way to make like subtle rust effects look awesome. To get that wear and tear, to get that super heightened, like, this vehicle's been to hell and back. It is driven through, you know, sandstorms. It's been, you know, it's a billion years old. Like, it is the technique. I love it. You know, check out that Rza Rust when you get a chance. All right, here we go. Coming into a technique everybody's been asking me about, the heat scoring, the heat bluing of the metals. I did a lot of research on how this looks. I spent a while nurturing it. You know, I did a lot of Google searches on people's motorcycle exhaust ports, etc. This is my color scheme right here. Is I'll start orange brown. Reaper orange brown is my heat. It's my jam. Get that color, blow out the tip with it. You know, just coming hot, going really far into the barrel, because you're gonna start layering back. So as you can see, that's what's happening right here. The next stage is gonna be just as important. I like to use Ferrari Red from the Vallejo airline. It's a real true red. It also just airbrushes really sweet. You're coming in and you're gonna wipe out a bunch of that orange brown you just did, but not, you know, you're not gonna go in as deep. You're gonna leave some of that orange. So pick out a good purple here. Same technique. You're gonna pull it back, but you're still leaving some of that red exposed, and you're still leaving a little bit of that orange brown exposed as you're working toward that final blue that pops. Here it is, the blue, like a real true blue. Come in, just get it nice and perfect, a ring around that tip. Real hard transition, keep it tight. Sometimes I like to go in afterwards and edge highlight it with some brighter blues. Give it that real sheen, that, you know, make it look real. And here they are. This is what they look like, man. They look pretty cool. I think they look pretty realistic, and I love them. Coming into the OSL stage, the object source lighting. You gotta do this if you have an airbrush. You're squandering an opportunity, but it does take a little bit of work to get these things a little classy. You want that glaze of that turquoise to kind of hit some of the surface area around it, but be totally tight inside of it. It really pays to have good control with the airbrush. You know, I like to water the paint down a little bit, but not too much on this one. It's not an airbrush ready paint, but it is my favorite color for this transition. So I just, you know, I don't use all airbrush paints by any stretch. The next step here is I got like a more true turquoise. I'm coming in the center, radiating out from the center, popping. This is the stage that makes or breaks the OSL effect. This is the pure white phase. Sometimes I mix a little white in with the previous color, that's fine. Come in tight, but get that real good control to not completely wipe out everything you've been doing. You gotta come in tight and you gotta be confident and strong with that airbrush. I like to practice on, like, you know, cardboard paper with just water, getting my control. You gotta have control, and you gotta use a lot of PSI when you're pushing these thicker paints through. The make or break stage, pure white. That makes or breaks you. You gotta use it, and you gotta use it well. Hey guys, I wanna thank you for watching my very first video on my channel. It means a lot to me. Please subscribe to my channel. That would be super swell of you guys. Check out the links in the description box below. I got all the social medias, and I just wanna say thanks for watching, players.